The words modern audience is a bit of a death nail when it comes to these live action remakes. I mean, Steven Spielberg, say what you want about him, but I mean, he knows what he's doing when it comes to making movies. And even he says, like, yeah, there's problems with that. And now we got this new article from MovieWeb. Bambi live action remake will update the Disney tale for modern audiences. I don't know what they mean by, I have my ideas about what they mean by modern audiences, but it's usually not good. So let's take a look at the article. So Disney's 1942 animated classic Bambi will soon join the House of Mouse long list of live action remakes, and the new version will absolutely be family friendly, according to the writer. The new one will be family friendly. Is this not family friendly? I mean, did they take a look at this like, oh, that's for mature audiences only. It's not family friendly. What do they need to do to make it more family friendly? I wonder. The famous film directed by David Hand was the fifth project from Walt Disney's animated studios after Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Pinocchio, Fantasia, and Dumbo. Of that list, two have already been adapted to live action format, while one will soon hit theaters with its new version, and Bambi will be joining them soon. The one that's supposed to be coming out in theaters is obviously Snow White. I've made several videos talking about what a disaster that's going to be. But which one of these three do you think are the other two live action remakes that they've done so far? I bet people are going to say Dumbo and Pinocchio. And yeah, you're right. Those are the more recent ones. But they actually did do a remake of Fantasia. I mean, not quite Fantasia, but it was like, what was it, like 2008, 9, 10, or somewhere around there. They did a live action movie, The Sorcerer's Apprentice. And I only remember that because it had Nicolas Cage in it. And that's really all I remember from that movie. But I mean, it just goes to show how memorable these movies are. I mean, I don't think anyone actually watched Dumbo or Pinocchio. Little by little, Disney plans to bring all of its great animated movies that made the company the queen of the film industry back to the big screen, but with different versions. These movies made them the queen of the film industry, but they're doing different versions of this. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not an executive at Disney, but I would think if these movies were so successful, you'd want to just kind of do the same thing. I mean, they are doing the same thing, but it's like, don't try to reinvent the wheel here. I mean, if you're going to remake it, just remake it. Don't try to make a different version of it. And it is not only about changing the animated format for live action, but also about modernizing the stories and presenting them to new generations. These stories don't need to be modernized. They're good enough on their own. I mean, they might say like, oh, they're a bit more simplistic than what modern audiences are used to. It's like, yeah, but so what? I mean, why can't you just have a simple story? I mean, why does it have to have like the type of themes? I mean, no, scratch that. I mean, they're simple stories, but they actually have themes that resonate with people throughout the ages. And that's why people still watch these movies and still enjoy them. Whereas you get these live action ones and people have already forgot about them. And when did Pinocchio come out? I think it was only like 2 years ago or something like that. And no one even remembers that movie exists. And that's because like you're trying to change it and you don't need to change it. And this is from the writer. The thing is, Bambi is such a gorgeous film. It's a little bit different tempo than I think modern audiences are used to. Not to spoil the plot, but there's a treatment of the dying mom that I think some kids, some parents these days are more sensitive about than they were in the past. And I think that's one of the reasons that they haven't shown it to their children. I do think there was a way to update Bambi, and our take on it did give a little bit more of the scope to it. And I just think that to be able to bring it to life for kids these days in a way that maybe they relate to a little bit more would be a service to the original. Did she actually like the original one? I mean, okay, yeah, the Bambi's mom dies in this. Everyone knows that. I mean, unless you're a kid and you haven't seen it, but yes, is that an impactful moment in the movie? Absolutely. And that's the point of it. I mean, by saying you're trying to like soften it and handle it in a more sensitive way. I mean, she's basically saying we want to make our movie less emotionally impactful, which in my book, when your movie is less emotionally impactful than the original, then by definition, you're an inferior movie. But that's just what I think. I mean, comment below and let me know if you also feel if it's less emotionally impactful, it's a worse movie for it. But the thing is saying like, oh, parents haven't shown their kids as a result of that. It's like, who says? I mean, are parents not showing their kids Bambi these days? I mean, my kids are still only a couple years old, so they really can't watch. They don't really watch movies nowadays. But I mean, I fully plan on showing them a lot of these movies that I grew up with. I mean, why not? I mean, there's nothing wrong with them. They're perfectly fine movies, despite apparently not being family friendly or something like that. And a bit more of a scope to it. I mean, that basically means we're gonna make it longer, and we've seen that with a lot of their other live action remakes, and they just essentially tell the same story, but in a less good way and making it longer. And if you get a movie that's like between like 60 and 90 minutes long, and you're like, I'm gonna remake that until like about 120 to 100, or not 120, but yeah, like to like 120, 140 minutes long or whatever, but I'm going to essentially tell the same story. All that means is you're just doing everything the same, but just doing it slower and dragging things out. And that doesn't make it good. I mean, it says it's like the tempo that modern audiences are used to. It's like, yeah, but modern audiences don't like that. I mean, I'm constantly seeing that about the live action remakes for the Disney movies, is that they're just too long for what they need to be. I mean, you got the story, just keep it going. You don't need to stretch things out just because you have time to film. I mean, do they get paid by the minute or something like that when they make these? I mean, well, I don't know. I mean, they do make longer scripts, I guess. So maybe they do get paid by the page, or who knows? But I mean, that's not the way to go. I mean, when I was first learning to edit, I mean, it was always taught like, yeah, you make your first cut of it, and then after that, then you just start chopping it down. I mean, it's better just to have like 2 minutes of like really good stuff, as opposed to just like 2 minutes of really good stuff mixed in with 8 minutes of filler. Just be more efficient with it, and it works better in the long run. But the thing is, like, everyone knows that these live action ones just are inferior. I mean, we've seen articles talking about, I mean, this one's talking about Little Mermaid because that's the more recent one that came out, and just simple stuff like the fact that you get these stories that have stood the test of time and been out for decades. I mean, close to a century for some of them. And then you get modern writers who are like, yeah, I know people still watch it and like these movies, but I can do better. And it's like, what you're doing is you're standing on the shoulders of giants and trying to make yourself feel tall. And it's like, no, there's a reason these stories work. And when you watch the remakes, you can tell that the writers of them, or the filmmakers, or whoever's doing it, doesn't actually understand it. And that's why they're making so many of the simple mistakes. I mean, even just the live action format doesn't work. I mean, you look at this article. I mean, just look, which one is more pleasing to look at, this or this? I mean, like, does this look more realistic? No, this doesn't look realistic. This looks like bad CGI. This one doesn't look realistic, but at least it's pleasant to look at. And you're not taken out by the fact that this is, you're not thinking like, oh, that doesn't look realistic. You're just enjoying a movie and watching a character. And that's okay. And the problem with when they're doing these live action ones are like, I mean, I can see this Bambi trying to make it look realistic, and all that means it's going to be less expressive throughout the whole thing, and it's going to look more muddied when amongst the background and everything like that. And it's just not going to be a pleasant movie, and it's just going to be more stretched out and by their admission, less emotionally impactful. I mean, so really, I mean, there's no point in making something like this. If it's really that good, if it's one that you want to introduce to modern audiences, then just re-release it in theaters. Disney isn't shy about re-releasing some of their old movies, so maybe they should just do that. I mean, they could probably make a ton of money off of it with little investment on their part. I mean, I would rather them just do that than to keep hammering out these remakes that just cost the studio money and no one actually wants to see. But I don't know. Let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. And if you like this video, make sure you click that like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with the latest news. Thank you.